Hello and welcome to the Business of the Business podcast. I am your co-host, GP John Paz from the Two-Man Power Trip. Of course, joining me is the doctor himself, Mr. Trump Mania, Mr. Lavie Margolin. Lavie, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing good, John. I think we're in light of the WWE news with ESPN and another streaming platform. So we're in the shadow of that today and this week, depending on when people hear it. So lots of other news. But before we move on, wanted to cover a couple important causes in the wrestling world. First of all, we're well aware of Jeff Cannonball. Raising money on GoFundMe to support his medical needs and his family as well in the upcoming Cannonball Fest on Sunday, September 14th. And some other unfortunate news. Colby Corino, who's been the subject of this show many times, especially his efforts in the NWA and GCW and so on. He was injured in a match recently. Posted some pictures, I think, post surgery. So there's a GoFundMe for him as well. So if you can, go fund them and get out there and important people to the scene that we talk about every week on the show.
Love it. Hopefully, Colby gets well soon. Pretty damn serious injury there. But as far as what is going on today on the business, I guess you want to do a little maybe a state of the challenger brands kind of coming up as we head into the fall. So why don't we maybe start with New Japan Pro Wrestling and then we can kind of expand.
Yeah, so just to give people a sense rather than like what were the news bits this week, and we'll get back to it. I know it's been a couple of weeks, but now we're in early August. Previously we were in late July, and it's kind of mostly quiet for those type of news stories. So an opportunity to really reflect back on a bit of history for these promotions and certainly looking into the fall. What's their momentum like? What's some of the stories that are going on and so on? So I don't want to start with TNA today, although we'll get there because often it dominates because there's so much going on. But like you said, John, New Japan. So in terms of New Japan, I'm going to focus on the part that I have a better understanding of and relevant for us today, the U.S. market. We're talking about challenger brands, alternative brands for some of the bigger promotions and some independent promotions as well. So starting with New Japan's efforts in the U.S., as we've talked about before, it's really changed. What is this, going back about 15 years now? Maybe between 12 and 15 years, where they were teaming up with Ring of Honor, and there was really something unique going on there in terms of when Ring of Honor would run a show with New Japan, co-branding, it would really pop and was one of the some of Ring of Honor's best shows of the year. Then New Japan sort of got its own momentum and started running its own shows in California, and those were popping, and then they were doing both, culminating all the way with that glorious, horrible show and record-breaking show in Madison Square Garden. And New Japan in sort of in the shadow of AEW and really supported, through collaboration with AEW sometimes, standing on their own, has been a struggle as well. So just reflecting back, even this year, beginning of the year, San Jose, about under 2,000 people. When they ran Chicago, depending on the reports for Tanahashi's last match in the U.S., made 5,500. That was really impressive number.
Yep.
And then in May, back to California, the Resurgence show, about 2,000 people there. So there's no shows in the U.S. on the books outside of the dojo shows, which in terms of their training and so on, that is an important element of New Japan in the U.S., but none of these ambitious shows on the books at the moment. So the question mark for them is, will there be any shows in the fall? And I think it is an important question mark. I think running San Jose and maybe doing 2,000 people is good, sort of like in itself, but how many talents are you flying in from Japan? What's the opportunity cost? Is there a tour going on in Japan? And so on, that it just hasn't seemed to make sense in a while. Their distribution has and visibility has continued to diminish. Like, I'm not even sure exactly how one can access them in the US. I mean, it's not a mystery, but New Japan World, are they still on the Roku? They did stuff with Triller as late as April. Do they still do stuff with them? How active are they on YouTube? It's sort of confusing at this point, especially without having Access TV for quite a while. But in some ways, their visibility is some of its highest when they do collaborate with AEW occasionally, especially in around the Forbidden Door shows. Those have done really well in North America. Now they'll be in London in August, which is sort of like a one-time thing, apparently, because AEW will be back there for a number of years for their big Wembley show. It just happened that Wembley was booked for something else, and as we know. So that'll be a good thing for them. And just thinking about New Japan and sort of the opportunities for them, I think obviously expanding into Asian markets and the subtleties that are involved in each of those is obviously on their radar. And Europe, Australia, they have something going on there with some training that's going on and running some shows. So I think those are, and speaking broadly about a number of markets, but those just seem more fruitful than trying to run the US and Canada anymore. Maybe, like, I always thought the best model that they've done in the last few years was actually when things were on the downturn, but it keeps changing the name of the place, but like the PlayStation Theater, whatever it's called now, in Times Square, where they charged a high ticket price. It seems like they filled the place over a couple of days, and it just seems successful. They haven't been back, so maybe there was other costs involved and so on that weren't apparent, but that just seemed like the model that you have a very niche audience, so why not like have premium shows for them? What would you do with New Japan, John?
Yeah, it is interesting because sometimes I feel like they put a lot of guys on AEW, and then it's like, oh, well, we don't need to see them, when they were there in Chicago. We just saw them in Chicago when they were with AEW. So sometimes I feel like they need to make them more like scarce. They need to make them more feel like a special attraction. And, even if it's Ishii, I know people, maybe they don't know them, they do know. Maybe not having them appear so much on AEW and make it just, I don't know, that to me just kills it, because it's like, well, no wonder New Japan doesn't draw as well as it used to, because you're not getting the guys that are like rare, like, wow, Okada and Tanahashi are in the States, and like, yeah, maybe you could do that and run smaller venues, but you got to stop doing so many shows with AEW. You got to keep your guys to your guys.
Yeah, and I think there's that, obviously you don't lose the Japanese market, but there's certain elements where people had the patience for it before AEW, where New Japan was really clearly like the second alternative worldwide. Yep. And people be following whatever tournament was going on that would last for weeks, and people would go through every match and who's going to win it and how many points and whatever. And just to the US market, obviously people that are hardcore, they're listening, I'm like, that's awesome, what are you talking about? But like, to this market, it's just hard to follow. And there's kind of like that sameness sort of thing, where as there used to be something where talent came from New Japan, whoever they were, like when they crossed over, it was the coolest thing. You'd at least give them like a chance to, not impress you. You'd already like be predisposed to be impressed.
Yeah. Yep. Well said. I agree. So as far as New Japan, does that wrap it up, or do you think that we should see maybe more of them on Roku, or like what do you think about maybe more distribution?
Yeah, so that pretty much wraps it up. But the question is that they just have minimal distribution. I don't know where else they can possibly go now, right? Like everyone's trying to get more distribution, and I don't see further domestic outlets, maybe outside of like Vice TV, because of their sports oriented style. That would of like who would translate well to Vice. Bloodsport, which we'll talk about later, but like in terms of a promotion that does weekly TV or regular programming, like I could see that with New Japan. But really, the element of reflection and just looking towards the fall is like that their distribution is very very minimal. So that wraps up New Japan.
How about the world of WoW? What is going on with them?
So interestingly, the story with Sophie Cunningham was like one of those like cheesy wrestling stories, but it has a little bit of legs to it in that when Sophie Cunningham was fighting with Caitlin Clark on the floor, Dave McLean and I think later Jeannie Buss were like, hey, you know, come to WoW. So Sophie Cunningham actually responded to a reporter about this. Obviously, it has more legs than like any wrestling promotion because Jeannie Buss, who I think is in the process, right, of selling the Lakers or sold the Lakers,
But she's still a part of the team, yeah.
Still a part. So, like, if an owner of the NBA says something like of one of the biggest franchises, most historic franchises in the NBA, has something to say to a WNBA star, you know, like it's more likely to be heard than like whatever wrestling promotion seeking attention, even though it was like a little bit cheesy. So Sophie Cunningham responded to Landon Buford, a reporter, who asked on a potential dream opponent, but sort of turned it into WWE or AEW. So she didn't have much to say, but she was positive. I have no idea. I thought that tweet was pretty funny. I don't know what will come out of it. I'm still really focused on basketball, but it's kind of cool. I've been a lifelong WWE fan since I was little, so it's definitely something that would be fun to get into. So, you know, I know you saw this, John. I made a joke on X, sort of like who gets paid more, because we hear about NBA players being underpaid, and the WoW recruitment numbers are sort of out there in terms of training and then the series of tapings, you know, a few $1,000s a month, whatever it may be. So both are, you know, maybe relative to the market, paid fairly, but kind of low paying, you know, at the moment. Obviously, something like Sophie Cunningham is in the position to get a lot of sponsorship and you know, coverage and money in that way. Now, John, I'm trying to avoid, I don't want to be obscene on the show, but the WNBA is having a bit of an NWO moment. I don't know if you noticed.
Yes.
People are throwing things at the ring. So it's, you know, it's surprising, kind of like it really is showing the league is coming to its own. You know, you wouldn't think of them as being rowdy fans before, but interesting to see where this goes. And it seems like something that would be copied in wrestling, you know, like something like Effie would encourage or something funny like that.
Yes, the green toys, if you will. Can't say more than that, but let's just say you're very weird. Yes,
Google it, as they say.
Yes.
So what else is going on with WoW? So they're recruiting performers outside Southern California. For the first time. I think the session, like the tryouts, will not be too far outside of it, but I'm not sure if they'll have like a housing subsidy or something like that while people are training. So being more ambitious in that way. But this is more like to give them credit for it. It's something that we've mentioned. You know, John, WoW hasn't had a taping since basically they had a show in Vegas, like a special in September, but they actually haven't had a taping for their weekly show since August.
Oh,
now it's August 2025, but I mean August 2024. Just a series of shows which we talked about, and they had some sponsorship by the Chamber of Commerce to even lessen the price. And look, they got through a whole season. They haven't announced any further taping, so they're really like squeezing the value out of things. But you know, their distribution now, you know, some questions about where they some that I started, but questions about 100% syndication, and it seemed like they were off a number of markets, but then they seem to have returned. So something you know, it's a little bit off there. But we know with Wrestling Central and Roku, now just to give some clarity on Roku and fast channels, you know, some organizations may have different deals, but in talking to somebody in the know that deals with a pretty well-known entertainment brand who'd be in the position to negotiate because they have options. Their fast channels are like a split of advertising dollars. So people have to be watching, and advertisers have to be willing to pay for these programming. It's not like you're getting as far as a general deal, like you're not getting like a flat fee for something like this. WoW also has, through its Paramount connections and distributions, a Pluto channel as well. We know they're on Vice TV, so they're pretty well distributed. It's kind of like, it's almost like Solid, more of the same. But their opportunities for growth are probably more international, and because they're pretty well distributed as far as they're going to go.
Now, as far as the NWA is concerned, because they're both on that Wrestling Central channel, what's up with Roku and the NWA, and maybe anything else going on with the NWA?
Yeah, so we just have to remember that they were on X for a while, sort of like somewhat unexpectedly, not completely once the WWE takes over a platform, but it was unclear, like, were they getting revenue from that or whatever, and they kind of made it work. But then they switched over to Roku in a couple of ways. So one is the Wrestling Central channel, and the other is this dedicated show, which has a time and day on their sports channel. So that they may be getting rights for, as opposed to like a revenue split. I just don't know. What else is going on with them? NWA 77 in Huntington, Long Island. A few hundred tickets out the door there. And then they're back to the Tampa PBS studio tapings in early September. And the territories, which I think they're about up to around 9 now. And, I'm not sure how many have their own distinct talent. It seems like the NWA people, whether they're under contract or not, they seem to float around from one show to another, which kind of is important to get them out there. I don't see too many other prospects for the NWA right now. Maybe it's sort of like finding that market, like a Dothan, that has like wrestling roots, whose media will support you to do like shows like Hard Times. There may be other markets out there that are not yet known or that they haven't tried, and that might be their best prospects for growth. They're kind of somewhat under the radar now, unfortunately. Like we talked about, like Colby Corino being out, but their name talent, it's sort of a lot of it happens to be people with like TNA or WWE pedigree who don't have that buzz or as much of a following as others do. It's sort of like that Billy Corgan vision, which doesn't always translate so well across the wrestling spectrum, I guess, to say the least, or to put it nicely.
What about MLW? Paul Walter Hauser, he's all over the place. He's promoting it on talk shows because he's in the Fantastic Four movie. What about MLW? What's going on Major League Wrestling?
Yeah, so John, you're the one that taught me about the importance of Paul Walter Hauser. I was like, who is this guy? Like, I know he's in movies, but does anyone care? And you explained to me like that he's like very relevant and whatever. But like,
yeah,
the question for me is like, yes, he was in Wall Street Journal and on late night TV and on red carpets, and he's in the Fantastic Four movie and another very relevant movie that just came out at the same time. So very much like of the moment.
There you go.
But if you hear his name, or like there's a line in a news article that he does hardcore matches, or he's wearing an MLW baseball cap, do you think that translates to business?
Hard to say. Yeah, I know what you mean. Hard to say.
Yes, because that's like MLW's like number one PR right now. It's actually interesting because it's, from what we know, it's kind of tied into also their potential deals, because he's the one that's passionate about wanting to make them a deal, and they're tied into, I'm not sure if it's considered his like corporation or his company or whatever it is that's trying to get them a deal. But again, I just think it's a very tough market for that right now, and I just don't know where they would go. They sort of like had their, and not all of it, was their fault, of course, but um, what was it? Tubi. I mean, that ended up working out really well for them in terms of the lawsuit with WWE and so on. So that was a plus. But like in terms of that not working out, then Vice, some of that was a little bit of fiddling. Two, from what we understand, there may be more than a little. And then also, what was it? The other channel where they had runs the the police show, a reality show, and that didn't work out.
Real. Yep.
Reels. So that didn't work out either. I think they should it seems like sometimes that they don't sort of respect the beIN Sports. I mean, obviously they're not upset and they allow them to go seek out other deals, or maybe it would be concurrent. But this company that's based in the Middle East, but they have the US station, which they're on, they've been paying them, from what we understand, for a number of years, even as the station's profile gets lower and lower. I mean, they've launched beIN Sports Extra. So, for whatever people are watching, the a Diginet like that. But it is fairly well distributed, as a fast channel as well, talking about fast. And then YouTube, they've been on it, they've been off it, but they've been back on it for a while now. So that's their distribution. Not much buzz in terms of the promotion. I think one thing they're doing well, and whether it's, their on-the-ground promotion is just working really well, or there's logistical setup, or tickets are being distributed through whatever means, they've been able to announce sellouts one after the other for a while, and some impressive-looking crowds relatively in LA and Dallas. So that's a positive that they have. But in terms of the talent, and again, step removed, I don't watch it and whatever it may be, but it looks like older CMLL talent, older New Japan talent, their domestic talent have been people that have been there before. Maybe they came back because it didn't work out, or people that have been around the block before. It doesn't feel like anyone's breaking out. You have Matt Riddle, which is good. I mean, he has his baggage. That's why he's apparently, which is why he's not in WWE, according to reports or whatever. But so that's a building block. But they don't necessarily have the tools right now in terms of distribution or necessarily talent in order to break out outside of Paul Walterhauser.
Very, very true. Now, as far as GC Dub is concerned, what's the latest with GCW? How do you think they're doing? And are they affecting the Triller market at all?
Yeah, so it's sort of it's kind of like an odd situation, right? Which we've talked about for a while. And we've talked about with Brett. This Triller thing is hanging over their heads for quite a while. Although, not exactly confirmed by Brett, but sort of reading between lines and whatever, and what reports have been from other wrestling promotions, it seems like Triller isn't always up to date, in terms of payments and whatever. I don't imagine that they've gotten far behind with GCW, or it hasn't reached a pain point, because GCW hasn't stopped doing its thing or distributing to Triller. Basically Brett said they're a ride and die, right? They really believe in the Triller Plus team, at least. But you sort of have that reality too, where Triller is basically just above its 52-week low. As a stock, it's a penny stock. It's almost below 50 cents. Sometimes it'll pop up again. I'll be like, oh, I should have bought it. But it's a crazy stock to try and ride. But what's going to be sold and when and all that sort of thing. So that's one thing, hanging over them. But they're always doing unique things and showing the importance of them to Triller, right, between July 28th and August 2nd. Obviously a unique time, but Triller Plus can say, like, look, 7 shows, 3 shows from Japan, and then there was the SummerSlam weekend, which included the ID showcase, as well. So they're continuing to do their thing. Sometimes I feel like the like hitting all 50 states thing is sort of kind of like unnecessary. Like, just, I mean, no one knows the numbers more than Brett, and obviously he's making that decision, but like sometimes it's sort of like, why? Like, don't worry about that. Just do what you need to do in terms of business. But we are not far away, finally, from the Juggalo. I've been waiting for clips to come out for quite a while, so we're just a little bit more than a week away as we're recording this away from the Thornville, Ohio double shot GCW, JCW 2-day war. So that should be interesting. Hopefully not too interesting. Who was it? John Wayne Murdoch that was set on fire and they couldn't put him out for a while at
not good.
In New Jersey, which is crazy. And actually, let me go back and see. So that happened. Well, actually, this graphic doesn't show it, but it wasn't the last show that they did in New Jersey, but they still, I guess you could sort of say, like, it had to have been booked by GCW, not the Angle, but, working with JCW. But there wasn't like something where, like, okay, don't come back tomorrow for the next shows. Maybe there was like a promise of no fire or whatever it is, right? Like with the 2300 arena back in the day. But like, I know that extreme matches have gotten commonplace, but these are people's lives, and obviously there's no excuse for that. Even with our friends of the show, Violent J, and Brett wasn't involved in that, but obviously it comes within his purview now, being part of the collective type of weekend. Quietly, we haven't heard much buzz about it. Atlantic City, they're back on homecoming weekend for a double shot. John, I'm deeply ensconced in Atlantic City history right now as I write the first couple chapters of Ultimate Fighter. A look at President Trump, UFC, and Dana White. So always fun to look into Atlantic City.
I thought you were going to say like Nucky Thompson or something. I thought you were going all the way back to the 20s.
Oh,
I was
yes.
like, oh, history of Atlantic City here. Shit.
Yeah, like it's sort of like that's the challenge with a book. When do you where do you start and when do you end, especially with somebody like Trump, right? Like, I think it's important to bring context to the boxing thing because it in a sense, it led directly into the UFC getting legalized in New Jersey and then Trump hosting it. But that's in the book. But besides that, in September, Detroit, Indianapolis, Mesa, Arizona, then back to LA. It feels like a while since they've been in LA. Another blood sport in London, Anchorage. Let's see if they have the others listed here yet. Vermont, I think there was a New England show announced as well, unless I'm just conflating that with Vermont. But sort of like, I don't want to make it say same old, that it's boring, but, doing their thing, basically. No huge attendances. I know a couple different attendances came out. I think Dallas, it was good. It was good, like relatively for maybe expectations, but it was listed on a cage match as 500. And then Coney Island was 700. So, TNA sort of took over the market that weekend, but I think like with some more local promotion, they could have done better than 700 there, but sort of doing their thing. But another key besides, I would say like Triller is the first key for GCW, going into the fall. But the next, of course, is the continuation of the WWE relationship, which I think not only is it solid, but it even gets stronger, at least through the context that they're working with. I'm assuming that's like Gabe Sapolsky, right? That's doing this Evolve stuff and WWE ID stuff and so on. And I think he did one of those famed, what was it called? Tryouts or seminars that he's known for.
Yep.
which could be a little bit awkward. I think Effie wasn't too happy with him about something like that years ago. Maybe that's under the bridge. Hopefully, I'm not mixing up anything. But some GCW footage will be played on Tubi, or maybe it has already as we're recording this, from the ID program. So I think there's a little bit of a branding problem right now with all these like new things, because you have NXT and then Evolve and then ID. I feel like, I don't know, I can follow it, but it seems kind of confusing about like what's what and where things are trying to get to. I think obviously NXT is pretty well established, which we'll talk about in a moment, but the whole Evolve thing and ID thing isn't exactly clear. Like, do you need champions in both? What do you make of it all?
Yeah, to me, I don't know. It could be a little watered down. It could be a little too much. You know what I mean? I'm more in the less titles and don't water the thing down. It's not necessary.
Yeah, and I mean, like, if they're going to expand it, like, sort of make maybe ID should be its own thing. And thinking out loud now, you'd have to, like, if the thing is that it's like traveling champions for independence, you'd have to pick your like core, which they have, but then you'd need to support the production so that there's some consistency week to week for something like that. But that's several steps ahead and something maybe that they haven't even thought about.
Very true. Speaking of WWE relationship, what about TNA? What's going on with them? They have a WWE relationship. Odd to say all these companies have WWE relationships, but they do.
Yeah. So I woke up 6 a.m. today and just having some breakfast, flicked on X, and then suddenly there was the WWE ESPN deal. And then I just made a joke that TNA fans are going to say that TNA should be on Peacock now. And then later in the day,
Yep.
there was talk that they're now the lead horse. Like Peacock is the lead horse for getting TNA this deal. So
And
we've
AAA.
heard
Yep.
AAA. We've heard A&E and CW. So I'm not going to go so far as I'll eat my hat. I think I skinned the cat on that one with Fox, for the Fox platform and whatever. So
Yeah,
I'm
you're
not going to
lucky.
go that bold, but I'm just thinking about like an NBC Universal Peacock executive. Okay, WWE. Look at all these other bidders. It's getting expensive. We have SmackDown through 2029. So what are we going to do here? And it'd be like, I know, let's get TNA. Like, I just don't see that. Like, it just it seems like more in the bubble. Like for CW, like Brad Schwartz is familiar with TNA, basically promoting TNA for better or worse, right? Depending on what you think about the booking week to week on NXT, that makes sense. With A&E, we know that they're not going to pay for WWE actual wrestling, or maybe like contractually it's just it's not viable. So maybe with like a TNA there, but like Peacock, it just doesn't make sense. And with AAA, like obviously they're not going to want to distribute that through YouTube forever. But I guess actually I have notes of that later, but you talk about that now. But I just don't see it being like immediately filled, because they had one show in the U.S. market that people are aware of, meaning that the most recent Worlds Collide, there's going to be Triple Mania and so on, but like I just don't see it with Peacock. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, I was like, oh, okay, maybe Peacock wants to stay in the wrestling game, but for some reason, I just don't see it with TNA. Maybe I'm wrong. Hopefully, I'm wrong, but I just don't see them getting involved with TNA. I could see CW though, CW and TNA.
Yeah, that's to me like A, it's like I see it most likely, but B, I'm kind of surprised it hasn't happened yet. Just the way that CW is just like doing all these deals with like semi-major sports, and they're just like happening. So with like TNA, is it just like dragged out and so on? But what are the keys for TNA? So like WWE relationship, and it seems to be really the key is like with the media, the blessing. But like in terms of what Carlos Silva has said, like later about the TV deals, now it kind of felt like he was hinting that he was like just it was true, but like it was an important like hype piece. Like just in terms of reading about what he's been saying more recently, when you compare it to just before Slammiversary. So was it just to get more attention and get a good crowd for Slammiversary? With that attention, I'm curious about it. We've heard about their finances, rumors, and we even see like sometimes they spend, sometimes they don't. Talent retention, Joe Henry. When will he go to WWE? Will it be something like we have access to him? So, and we're trying to get you guys a TV deal. So best you stay where you are. Sometimes having those relationships aren't the best if you're a talent that wants to go. But obviously, with Jordan Grace, which was before things were super tied in, but they were definitely there. She was able to float pretty easily. But just in terms of the literal late summer and fall, just looking at the numbers from WrestleTix. So Baltimore is right around the corner. Emergence and Impact taping. 1,044 on the first day distributed, and then 609 the second day. And the capacity setup is 1,476 in a venue that's much larger than that. In Minneapolis on September 4th and 5th, 419 tickets, 563 tickets. Again, something fun to follow because it seems like these are already doing well relatively, but even more so with 6 weeks to go. Victory Road in Edmonton, 1536 and 1398 on that double shot in late September. And then Lowell, which is in Ticketmaster, so we don't have WrestleTix following that, but Bound for Glory on October 12th.
What about the latest, considering we're talking about TNA and stuff, what about NXT? Because I feel like we're not giving them maybe enough love, but they're going on a bit of a mini road trip.
Yeah, that's the most interesting thing to me. I mean, it was just announced within a day, but most interesting thing to me about NXT right now is running the old Southeast market, Spartanburg, North Charleston, and Augusta. So North Charleston, I'm not sure of like the capacity setup and so on, but the others are about 2,000, 2,500 seats. So kind of a cool thing, I guess. It depends on what their objectives are. Maybe it's both at the same time. But one is that it's been talked about a number of times. You have to get talent work in front of crowds, in front of decent-sized crowds, and so on. Two is that, for big-time wrestling, and, not referencing the promotion, but just like WWE as the major league promotion, although NXT is the training ground, semi-third brand. There is the opportunity to serve these markets. And I think you could, if you do it well, you could probably serve both at once, meaning that it's developmental and that you get people work, but you have a number of WWE talents that are contracted that, they could be special guests, guest stars or whatever it would be called, put into special main events for the champions or tag matches or whatever. So you can always like goose it up in that way to drive ticket sales. So something to experiment with and to see how successful this is and if this becomes a regular thing, right? Like they tried going on the road early on for a few times when they went on CW, and it worked really well. The second time, I think week 2 didn't work out or week 3 and was canceled. And then once in a while they'll do something which is smart and spices things up. But here I think it's a really interesting opportunity and not something WWE proper is really doing anymore, outside of potential holiday shows and European tours.
Very interesting. That we're talking a lot about WWE with GCW, TNA, NXT. What about AAA?
So this hasn't been reported on much, but it's out there on LinkedIn. One of the important executives, I would say, from AAA, who helped to connect us to Dorian Roldan for interviews on this show. He has left the promotion. He's basically celebrating on LinkedIn that, he helped to get it to this point and so on. And now it's WWE, taking over and so in a positive way, not so many words, but I'm just curious, like how much of that guard has turned over and become like WWE now. And I'm not even sure when the deal is actually supposed to be like finalized, right? Like when it was announced, it was going to take several months. But number of question marks for AAA. The first time the Worlds Collide thing was a home run. Now we'll see like how Triple Mania translates, but obviously they'll want on the US side want to get US distribution. Will there be regular shows here? What will the merchandise look like? And will it be distinct from WWE in any way? Or like as soon as somebody gets hot, you start producing merchandise through WWE platforms, you feature the talent on WWE and so on, which makes a lot of sense now, especially Mr. Iguana, right? Like, you don't want to wait. AAA isn't set up yet to do X, Y, and Z, so you wanted to capitalize on it, but there'll be question marks at least into the fall on all of these things.
Nice. Now, anything going on with ROH as far as Ring of Honor is concerned?
Yeah, that's the question. I don't think so. Then and sort of like people got mad when I was like, just kill the thing, you're not doing anything with it, and like you're especially the AEW product was suffering at the time that I said it, and like maybe it's split two ways, but it's sort of like it's and I'm sorry for people that love it and like get it, and you'll explain to me why, but like it's just basically legacy of people that never canceled ROH World. The what's it called? Honor Club. ROH World is the website of our friends at PW Pondering. So that should remain and be a great website. But are they going to keep doing these occasional shows, mining talent for AEW? But it seems like a talent like Athena is just like, how long has she been the champion there? And I'm a fan, but like, what are you going to do with her? It just seems like pointless to me, John. I don't know if it's been on your radar much, but like maybe you could explain it to me what's going on there.
I have no idea. I would have got rid of it a while ago. I mean, I used to love Ring of Honor, but it's not the same. It's it really isn't. And what they're doing with it now is odd. It just isn't working. To be honest, it's just not working for me.
Fair enough. So I just wanted to cover, some notable independent brands. Obviously,
this isn't quite here and there, but this is kind of here and there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John. I should have. Fair enough. It should be a here and there for putting in our usual and old school observer format as well. So, to me, and I'll beat this drum as long as I can. I think Bloodsport should really stand on its own. It has something going. It always has a buzz. Obviously, you benefit a lot from the infrastructure that Brett provides, not only in terms of the ring and booking the venues and putting it as part of weekends, so you don't even have to worry about it standing on its own. But, my thoughts are give it a chance to stand on its own. Basically, you've been running 4 shows a year, depending on how you count it for the last few years or post-pandemic. and they've all been really well received um, for the modest spaces that they're in. I think they've all been sold out. Um, so, the time is now to sort of, easier said than done, but raise capital, um, give Shayna Baszler, a chance to have the spotlight, um, not have Josh Barnett main event, maybe, and keep the. I think that's really cool, like the way it crosses over with Natalie Neidhart against Masha Slamovich, meeting of those worlds, and like it's just something unique and something people want to see.
Definitely, totally agree. What the heck is Fourth Rope, by the way?
Yeah, so this is the rapper from Buffalo that has gotten buzz for the promotion. Fourth Rope, or Heels Have Eyes, and they've teamed up with basically everyone. Like they were on the TNA pre-show, with um, what's his name, the Enzo, and Umaga's son, and so on. So they had that, and then they were at South by Southwest, and they ran their own show in Atlanta Center Stage, and they were with For the Culture with GCW. So kind of like a buzzworthy, kind of cool promotion, and so on. So just something interesting to see where they're going to go. I can't tell them where they should go, but it's just like interesting to watch. Next, the Juggalos. Basically, as we've talked about, their most recent schedule has been everything with GCW, from the Rutherford, New Jersey weekend, the now infamous, the show in Detroit that they teamed with GCW or feuded with them, then the Gathering, and so on. And then the previous to that, the Lunacy YouTube tapings were all over Milwaukee, Minneapolis, Green Bay, Omaha, Reading, Pennsylvania, and so on. And as Violent J explained to us, these are often teamed up with their concert touring. So somebody can go to the show prior to the concert beginning, or it's all tied in, which obviously cuts down on costs, and you have bigger crowds there. So they're reaching for something interesting to see where they can go. Now, John, I've been thinking about this. Like, do you think it would make sense for, obviously they're working together regularly, like Violent J just to be like, hey, Brett, can I buy a piece of GCW? Like, let's roll this into one, and so on. Like, do you think that the promotional power and additional finances that the Juggalos bring to GCW would just help raise all ships, or do you think it would like sort of muddy the waters of the different promotions and not work out?
I don't know. When you do that stuff, sometimes you like think it might work out, and you think of all the positives. But for some reason, I think sometimes in the fans' eyes, that you're kind of muddying the waters, like you said, and it's almost like, that's not my GCW now. You know what I mean? Like you're kind of changing the structure of what makes it special.
Yeah, good point. I guess, when have wrestling mergers ever worked out? Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm struggling. I'm sure there have been some. And then House of Glory, of course, Master P behind the scenes. I'm not sure how
Oh
much
yeah.
he's involved. Not much, um, but starting to pick up, as we talked about. Chicago, Texas, Pennsylvania, and so on. Like they seem to be doing well. And then in New York, they have the regular shows as well. If it's in the NYC arena, their training area, or in one of the clubs in Queens, they have their thing going on. But it just seems like their buzz continues to grow. So those are the ones mostly on my radar. I'm sure there's several others that feel like Luis Perez can reference and tell us why they're most worthy of being buzzworthy promotions right now.
Nice. All right. Good stuff. We cover a lot of different organizations today on the show. Let's wrap this bad boy up and head towards the plugs. You follow me on Twitter and Instagram at 2Man Power Trip. How about you, Lavie?
So follow me on X at Lavie Marg, LAVIE MARG. Check out my long form articles on linejobsearch.com. Follow our LinkedIn group, The Business of the Business, or join. Tell other people about the show, share it, rate it, review it. I think it took a little bit of a while, but we're up to 10 Apple reviews, and most of them are good. So just get the word out if you enjoy the show and you want it to continue for many years to come.
All right. Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. See you right back here next week for a little business of the business. See you next week, folks.